earlier, the reason I think I knew something was off with that color red, because the red that went up the driveway before that wasn't shiny. It wasn't candy apple red. It was an off red. It was not right. And that's why I'd asked my son and even bothered going, who was that? Because if I'd see, you know what I mean? That's what cued my brain in. But it was like, it took steps to realize, you know?
So that kind of confused you, too, at that moment.
But the color, I knew it wasn't right. Coming up the driveway earlier, that the red wasn't right, that the clear coat wasn't there. And that's why I even bothered to ask who was that. Because my brain went, that ain't right, it's the neighbors. But I just, when my son said, oh, it's neighbors, I dismissed that, too.
Could it have been done?
I don't think so, because the traction was wrong on it, and it didn't complete the circle.
Between 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, where would you put that in? Is him and is or isn't?
I'd rather not state that publicly.
50-50?
I'm just, I don't know, but it's something that, I just rather not publicly say it, just because my opinion holds weight, and I mean, they're already doing things, and that's been my mission from the get-go. It's never about guilt or innocence or speaking on my opinion. Other than to say that I don't think Candace did it, just because of seeing her face that day and her voice and knowing the risk for her and calling 911 even. I feel like she didn't have anything to do with it, but I can't speak on or what, I may have missed that day. Because there's all kinds of, I could have missed all kinds of things. I mean, what we heard, and I'm willing to say it. I mean, and that's the thing. I've always been open to the possibility that, take away the screen, right? Take it away entirely. The same possibility still exists, but there's a bigger picture there than just John or Candace and poof. And that was my goal. I mean, but if you want to talk privately, I have no issue with that, but there are certain things, that was my mission coming right. It was not to speak on guilt or innocent. It was just to let people know there's a bigger picture there.
No, I will definitely take you up on that. And what's interesting is, and I think you and I will probably agree, when I first met Candace,
there was no other vehicle. There was no red truck here. And then the only one here was the blue, and we were like, no. And there's some things there that, but we were like, no, the only one here was the blue, Trailblazer. And there was no other vehicle. There was no red truck here. And then by the time, everything finishes, the days go on, they finally start asking about a red truck. And I was like, well, I didn't see one in here that day. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I was being asked about. And they gave me this picture. And it was like, I didn't see that day. And you know how sometimes they can be kind of short. I'm obviously not a short-winded person, but they want the question answered and they move on. And I mean, there was a lot of things to do, a lot of agencies involved. They want the question answered and they move on. And I mean, there was a lot of things to do, a lot of agencies involved. I understand it. They're doing their job. But then we had a specialized team come out, and it was like, there was a guy that was coming in here and, tried to expand upon it, but there was a truck that had been coming in and out for weeks. And the reason I would see it is because I was down there trying to run the survey lines and things for weeks and pull all the property stuff and measure and do this and other across mine and Candace's and there were other properties to make sure ours lined up. And so I was seeing this guy come in and out, and because I have to sit at the bottom of the hill because my body doesn't take stuff like that well anymore, so I'd rest. But then around the same time, a lot of days I'd be waiting on Baltimore to get in from work, and I'd be waiting there. But this guy kept coming in and out, in a truck just like they're looking for. To me, it was a little older, a little earlier, but not by much. Baltimore seen the truck too, and the guy, and he thought he knew who it was and where they lived, but we can't find the truck, and couldn't at that time either. It was no longer placed and living where it was, and which is just a few houses down from where I'm at now. But I don't know this around. This guy would come by every day at the same time, and I thought, well, drug traffic, something like, you know what I mean? And we were almost eye to eye every day, and just, like maybe 2 feet apart. Because usually it's flowers doing something at that point. But he always kind of looked at me a little odd, but I don't know. But he didn't look like he was on drugs. That's what got me. And for some reason, his face stuck with me. And that's something strange these days because faces usually don't anymore. It's something that was taken by medicines, like beta blockers a couple years ago. And so I don't really do faces, directions, stuff like that as well as I used to. But, and it depends on the day. But for some reason his face stuck with me even before summer, but I can see his face and his hair still. And I know that if he'd stepped out of that truck, he's shorter than I am, darker skin, tattoos, like almost gel-like, but better quality than that on the left arm. Smaller, but almost like construction, but nothing that would be super upper body. It wasn't super muscular, wasn't stringy sort of drug addict construction you see either. The hair kind of had that silver tint to black, but it wasn't turned silver. It's almost like ethnic or sort of like certain types of indigenous hair. Like it has something to it that just makes it different. And it was flat, but it wasn't unclean. Kind of thin, but not like super thin. His nose had a different type of shape. He looked healthy. But it was super up, but there was a ladder rack on the truck that kept coming or going. And then, like I said, I talked to cops about it off and on through this, but and it was mostly lower in truck, and I was kind of dismissed. I never even got to the guy really what it looked like or anything. And then I found this woman's post, and I've got proof on my phone that I saw this guy. I was looking for him after even being dismissed, kind of about it. It wasn't dismissed. It was just like, okay, we heard you type of thing, But,
is he Hispanic?
No. He's got something there, but it's not full on anything, you know what I mean? Like there's something there, and you can tell it in the nose shape, and the face, and the hair, and the skin tone. You can't really, there's something in the background of genetics there, but it's not full out or enough to,
Did you